Bud Rosch. And work is it? My wife and I, we were sitting down one day in the den, and we were watching television, and Walter Cronkite comes on, and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have a story to tell you tonight. It's going to be very interesting, but you're going to have to think back to the war years." And he says, "These fellows, an American crew flying a B-24, he says they were shot down in Yugoslavia, and a 15-year-old boy took them across Yugoslavia to the other side to where a plane could be flown in and then picked up." And now, how the story came about was that there was two factions in Yugoslavia. There was the communists led by Tito, and then there was Mihalovic, who was called he led the Chetniks, and they were enemies. The two Tito and Mihalovic were enemies. In fact, Tito had Mihalovic executed and put in a traitor's grave. See? So this kid led them across the country, and what happened was that he had to move to Australia because he couldn't live because of Tito, he couldn't live in Yugoslavia anymore. And a story came out, and they picked it up in Washington, that this 15-year-old boy at the time, he's gotten much older, and he has cancer, and he's got terminal cancer, and they asked him what would he like to do, and he says, "Well, I would really like to meet the crew that I took across Yugoslavia." So they arranged that for him to come to the country, and Walter Cronkite says, "We have him here," and he introduced the Yugoslavian fellow, you know. And then he says, but we couldn't get the whole crew of the B-24, but he says, "We have the captain of the ship," and he named the captain, and then he said, "And we have the navigator," and who shows up? It's Tony Orsini, who was our navigator. You know, my wife and I, we almost fell off the couch. You know? And there's Tony standing right in front of us, and immediately I said, "I'm going to try to get in touch with Gloria, his wife, you know, so to tell her we saw this." So I called up, and we made an arrangement where three of us that lived in that area, the navigator, Bill Nareth, and Tony Orsini and myself, would meet at Tony's house in Colonia, New Jersey, and have a three-man reunion. And it was really something that when he showed us Tony Orsini on the thing, our eyes just went out. We couldn't believe it. You know? That's one story. And then another short story is, I was trained in Gowan Field, Idaho, and that's where I got on a crew of a 24. And the man, Colonel Killer Kane, they called him in those days, he was the one who made the very first Ploesti raid from Benghazi Africa, and it was a very it did some damage, but it damaged our end a lot more because we lost 2/3 of the plane and 2/3 of the men, and they sort of blamed Killer Kane at the time. In later years, we found out that what they were blaming him for was not so. But they made him, they took him out of Benghazi and they sent him over to Idaho to head Gowan Field. It was sort of a, put down, see? And I was in the mess hall eating, and my wife was there, and she said something to me, and she's always reading books, see? And she was going through the door to get out of the mess hall and reading a book, and she pushed the door right into Colonel Kane's face, and he got very mad because, first of all, he was kind of angry all the time because of what happened to him, And he said something, he says, "Why don't you look where you're going?" My wife said to him, she says, "I thought officers were gentlemen." And all the fellas there that heard that, they all start laughing, and I thought, uh-oh, I'm going to be transferred out of here.